All right, hello and welcome everybody. Today we're doing yet another session here at the Gosu Academy, and today I thought I'd pick a topic that I think is quite interesting. It's something I've never really heard people talk about, but I think it is a super important topic to talk about in Counter-Strike. And I'm not really sure how I'll word the title, but essentially what I'll try to do is I will go through each and every map in Counter-Strike, like professional Counter-Strike right now, and then I will talk about what are the easiest and the hardest things that a T-side can do. You should see it almost as a tier list, and even though... wait a second. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
oh,
sir.
okay. My game crashed. I'm not quite sure why. But basically, you should see it as a tier list, and the reason why that is important, because it's more than just a tier list. It is sort of a list that you can use to help prioritize which thing you should block first. So, like, when we're talking about this tier list and we talk about easiest and hardest and stuff like that, it's not about necessarily what is hardest to think up, you know? It's more about what is most difficult to do. I'll give you an example on Mirage here, because that's what we'll be starting with. So, anyone got an example of something that is a very easy thing to call? ST.
Rush B.
Yes, right. This was exactly the answer I was looking for. Like, I would say the easiest thing and the first step on the, let's say, Counter-Strike Mirage T-side ladder is rushing B. That's why one of the first things you learn when you are a CT is how to block B. And we can talk about real quick how that happens. Either people do like deep Molotov that bounces and lands here, which kind of, you know, cuts the rush in half. And then people will go and jump with a smoke and stuff like this, and then drop it if the T's are coming, super normal stuff. Something that I sometimes like to do, this is like slightly more advanced, I guess, but some people with front spawn will try to run and get into this corner. That way, if a CT is jumping from car, they are not expecting them that close, and if they are jumping with smoke in hand, if the T sort of comes out from here and runs with the flashes, you can actually never get back as a CT. So what I sometimes like to do if I'm playing against low money is I look for this line, and I believe I aim slightly left of it. This one goes in and it burns this area instead, and this kind of eliminates the possibility of someone beating me to this position, because as soon as my Molotov is up and I'm jumping like this, they can no longer sneak into that corner, basically. And it's also a really effective counter-rush molly. Now, the reason why so many people understand how to block a B-rush is because it is the easiest thing you can do on Mirage, and I have a theory that especially if you want to up your win rate in pugs, you want to be blocking what is the easiest first, and if you get good at blocking what is easy for the T-side to do, well, then you are making them take steps up this sort of T-side Mirage ladder, and the more steps they go up the ladder, the more complex it gets, and the more likely they are to make a mistake. And also, the more out of their comfort zone you make them, make them play more difficult Counter-Strike. And it requires more teamwork, something you won't really find in pugs. So that's kind of the brilliance of this. Now, like, I would say the next thing on the list would be rush A, like rush up A ramp. And so for this, CTs always will either use like Molotov like this. For this, let me actually join CT so we can see the CT molly, because I have a few notes about this as well. So you can either Molotov like this, which a lot of CTs do, but you can actually, as T, jump up behind it and peek. And this is a sort of aggro peek that I've started to do a lot in pugs. It catches a lot of CTs off guard. You can get a lot of free info or even kills as a T. So there is also the option of bouncing it a little deeper, making it land like this, which kind of makes it so the T's can't do this play. I guess they each have kind of their own use, because the idea of bouncing this Molotov is that you get the big flame in the middle, and it's harder for the T's to get information about who is crossing. But that's for another session. So blocking A is the second most important, and that's why I don't know. Now my game is kind of crashing again. I'm not really sure what's going on with the crashing. Let me try to close some things here. Oh, maybe it's because I have monitor capture and not CS2 capture. I hope it's fixed now. Anyway, looking at this ladder, we have like rush B is the easiest, rush A is the second. And then I think for Mirage, the next thing that I see a lot of people do in Face It is, you know, if rush B is not working, rush A is not working, is they will go either 5, let's do it like this, they will go 5 mid or 4-1. So when I say 4-1, it's like either they go all 5 mid and they just do, you know, instant window smoke. They swing out mid like so and just take fights. The other option is that they go 4 mid and then they have one on A who is playing either in Palace or in Ramp who is ready to react. I'll give you what I think is the best counter to this, and that is simply pushing on the sides. I see a lot of Face It matches where, you know, it's very obvious that the T's are going at least 4 in mid. And what I think people fail to understand as CT is that if the T's are at least 4 mid, it means that one of the sides will be open. So like if they go 4 mid and 1 B, well, we can easily push on A. If they go 4 mid and go 1 A, we can easily push on B. And also, if they go 4 mid and 1 A, it means either slope or palace is possible to push. And that's honestly one of the best counters, I think, to this. And there's a reason for that. And that kind of ties into what we're talking about today. This sort of making a tier list or a Counter-Strike ladder. This is kind of where I hope it starts making sense why this is important. So if you give the T's mid control, which a lot of T's will want to do, you know, they will do window smoke from spawn, I talked about this already, they will swing out with 5, and if they don't win duels out here in mid, you are actually forcing them to play more complex Counter-Strike. If you start pushing on the sides, you will always have information that, for example, if you push through B, B house is clear, you can, you know, walk underground late, you can walk behind top mid. There's so many things you can do, and this kind of information is, you know, really difficult for the T's to play against. Now also, for the T's, getting mid control is a lot of the times pretty easy, but using the mid control in a good way is not that easy. And I'll give you some examples. I've talked about this extensively, but like if you have a window smoke, for you to make space up con, like you will either have to do, you know, a top con smoke and then take it, and maybe even like a Molotov inside con, like this Molotov to clear out the close left, and then, you know, you use this to take it, and then when you get into this position, it is a strong position, but splitting anything is much more complex than just running out in mid and taking duels, or rushing B, or rushing A. Now, the same if you want to split B, for example. You still need window smoke, you probably still need some kind of con control, or at least top con smoke, to split B, or you can also smoke middle of con now. I'll give you another example. You can actually, if you stand here top mid, and you aim top left of the door, you can do this smoke, which goes over and lands jungle. Oh, I failed it a little bit. It might be, I think it's bottom. Oh, that doesn't seem right. Maybe I just slightly failed it. Let me see. Maybe I was standing a little bit wrong. This seems better. So basically, like, you can do a jungle smoke from top mid, right? I'll show you a cool flash lineup as well. You can aim here, and you can run forward and jump throw towards the end. This, if I didn't fail it, should be a pretty perfect flash for both sides. Okay, not quite. You could probably find a better lineup. I mean, you could also just do it simply by doing something like this, right? But either way, this actually proves my point. By me failing the flash and also failing the smoke, this is already far more complex. The same way, you know, an A execute is quite easy. But the hard part comes when you don't get a bunch of kills and you don't get the bomb plant before the smokes. Now it becomes complex. The reason why I think this is worthy of a session is because understanding what is easiest for the T side to do is power. If you as CT understand what is the easiest for the T side to do, and you do a good job at countering it, you will force them to come up with a different solution, which will always be more complex. So I talked about it a lot in a map like Overpass, for example, for those who have played that. I've talked so much, I'm not sure if I've done it in Gosu Academy, but I've done it in my YouTube videos a lot, that I talked about if you just block the monster contact, the chances of winning your CT side on Overpass goes up like with a magnitude of 100 million, you know. It's kind of the same on Mirage. Like, imagine playing Mirage without doing pre-molo ramp and without doing pre-molo B. This is just asking for trouble. And that's kind of the whole point of the session, is helping you guys recognize, you know, what is the easiest, what is the next on the list. Like, okay, if they can't rush B, which is the case in most pugs, they will maybe try to rush A, but if you also Molotov A every round, they know rush A is not a possibility. So then what a lot of people do is they just go 5 mid or 4-1, and then if you know, like I said, push on the sides, they get the mid control, but now they need to do something more complex. Okay, I don't really know what's going on with my PC right now, but it seems like every 5 minutes I'm lagging for like 4 seconds. We'll just have to live with it, because I think it's better if we keep everything in one video. But anyway, what I was saying is, yeah, if people go 5 mid, the goal should be to push on the sides, and that way you force the T's to do something that's more complex, which in this case would be splitting. And what would be then even more complex than that would be something like fighting them heavy in mid and killing them every round. You know, if you're able to block B rush, block A rush, and also kill them in mid every round, right? Ideal scenario, but let's say that's the case. Well, then the T's have to adapt with something even more complex, which is playing like slow defaults and using extra utility to take space and blah, 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 blah. And again, something that's more complex, especially in pugs, requires more teamwork, more communication, and has a bigger likelihood of failure, basically. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
Perfect. Then
Completely.
great. That's the goal. Then I'll just move into the next, because I think Dust 2 is actually, I think Mirage is, I like to start my theories on Mirage just because that's the most played map. But I think Dust 2 is actually even more so relevant for this. I see that I don't have skins, so actually my game crashing might be Steam trying to reconnect if Steam is down right now. That could be the case. Okay, so on Dust 2, I will just ask you guys again, what would you say is the least complex thing you can do?
A long.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say either A long or B rush. It's kind of the same as on Mirage, right? Like, any Faceit player is able to rush B and is able to essentially rush long, right? I would say, like on B, for example, being able to do this smoke, if you don't know it, as you're jumping over here, aim in this imaginary square, kind of in the middle. You just do jump throw as you're jumping across, and this one goes over and lands for door, basically. That's kind of a must-know smoke if you want to rush B, I would say. And the same thing on long. Either having the corner smoke or being able to do like the one-way that turns the Molotov off is really big. And also on long, you need to make sure that, you know, you get the right timing on the flashes. That's where I think my way of looking at it is rush B is, again, the easiest. Number 2 is like, not rush long, but like long take. The only reason long take is more complex in my head is because you need the proper timing of the flashes. And if you don't get the proper timing of the flashes, you probably lose. But that is why, again, talking about this theory of mine, CTs will always prioritize going and molotoving B at the start of the round and going. I mean, I always do this basically, go close with nade in hand. If I hear any sound B, I just nade in the molo and I try to block them. It's because I really don't want them to rush B, and I don't want them to feel like they can. And that's also why a default round on DOS 2 is where you, as a CT, fight for long control early, because I would say, especially in CS2, long control is CT-sided. What's changed? Well, there is the long smoke that you can throw from the back, and then you can easily just Molotov blue and give good flashes and swing, and it's really difficult for the T side to actually fight for this, I think. But so yeah, rush B, in my opinion, the easiest. Long take, second easiest. What would you say the T's are likely to do if they can't take long and they can't rush B? Any ideas?
Xbox, go short.
Yeah?
Yeah, mid control.
Yeah, right? So is it reasonable for us to think that if we can block the easiest things for the T's, we can sort of manipulate them into doing what we want? You know what I mean? Yeah? Because you guys are all on the same page that the T's are going to work mid-control, right? And for T's to work mid-control in CS2, what is important? Like, is there any really important util? You mentioned the Xbox smoke, right?
Yeah, but also have the new meta of smoking the door.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens if I do the door smoke just by hand like this?
There's a gap.
Yeah, okay, actually in this case there wasn't. But yes, it needs to be a kind of specific lineup, right? Which again means it's more complex, right? First of all, you need to know the smoke lineup. And then second of all, you need to go out into mid, which is a more open space. And you have to play more of a default round. Playing a default round overall will always be more complex than playing a rush. Because anyone can rush. That's not that tricky. But playing default is much more complex. I'll give you an example. So I was getting some sort of coaching in poker many years ago. And I got one of the best poker players, I hope I don't butcher his name. It's like Daniel Negreanu or something. One of the greatest of all time, I believe. And in his book, it said that if you are an inexperienced player, maybe I've mentioned it in Gosu before, an inexperienced player, the best chance an inexperienced player has of beating a better player is by going all in every single hand. Because you can go all in every single hand and have no experience, and the professional player can't really read what you are planning to do because there isn't many decisions made. That's what a rush in Counter-Strike essentially is. It's an all-in decision. You either win or you lose, and because there aren't many sort of mid-round decisions or in general decisions to be made, everything is chaotic. That is likely the best way to win if you are much less experienced than your opponent. So with that in mind, playing a default round or basically blocking the all-in things, which is possible in Counter-Strike, and forcing someone to play default is way more complex. And I think how a lot of people will take space now is using this mid-door smoke. And then they will, as you guys said, they will take short. But taking short control is actually quite complex as well. I don't have a T Molotov now, but this has been a piece of utility that has sort of made its way into the meta in CS2, because it wasn't, I think, possible in CSGO. But bouncing a T Molotov up here will burn a lot of area. Even CT Molotov is actually quite good. And with this, you know, with proper flashing and stuff, you can take this area quite safely. But if you get short, that's actually where the real complexity comes in. Because for me personally, I'm an ex-professional player. I remember this smoke from CSGO, right? And I actually even failed it, I believe. I guess it's fine. But yeah, I remember this smoke. But for this first smoke, there is a new lineup, and I don't even know it. Like, it is something like sitting here, and then it bounces, and it's supposed to land up on this ledge, so that you get, like, the most smoke that you can. But even I, as a professional player, ex-professional, sorry, who's coaching players who throw this every time we play Dust 2, basically, I don't know the lineup. And that shows you that this is far more complex than doing Rush B or Rush A. That's why I would say, on my list at least, you know, if I would put number 3 on it, I would say mid to B is my number 3. Because mid to B, let me see if I actually remember the smoke. It's good for me to practice my utility from time to time. Yes, so smoke is there. So for mid to B, I can, this would also be with a T Molotov, but I can do the Molotov here. I even fail it a little bit to clear close mid. And then I can do, you know, the mid to B smoke. And it's again far more complex. I need to use a Molotov to clear out area. We needed to play slow. We needed to take mid control first. Either by going top mid, which is risky in case they have an AWP out here, or going lower where we can get naded or people can be inside lower and stuff like that. It's, yeah, 10 times as complex. And then even if we have this smoke up and we want to split, the CTs can blitz the smoke and we can die while we're going up here, or the CTs can flash over the wall and peek us, or the CTs can smoke the door. There's like so many more things that can go wrong for us and that we need to adapt to, and where we need people to react in the correct way in a split second. And the same with a short execute. You know, it's not just the smokes that are far more complex. It's also, you know, having, like, even if you have the right smokes. Let me see if I can. Almost. But imagine we have the right smokes here. Going out here and knowing what to hold and dodge, people dodging flash and running up together and fighting, like opening yourself up to like kind of a crossfire here from many angles and stuff. This is all far more complex, and there's way more things that can go wrong. And so I guess I will include you a little bit in some of the anti-strat we had against a team at the Impact Finals. It was against Big Equipa. And our anti-strat was basically that Big were so bad on Dust 2 that they were unable to use the short control for anything. Like, they were good at getting, you know, they were able to take this space and, you know, use proper flashes from lower and go and take short control and stuff like that. But they were simply unwilling to short execute. And so we basically gave them short control every single round in entire CT half, because we knew we could give up that short control because their understanding of Dust 2 was not that great. And so, or well, maybe their understanding of Dust 2 was good, but they weren't as well practiced on Dust 2. And so we knew even if we would give them short control, they would need to give us a reason to be afraid of short. And it didn't happen. We ended up losing the match in the end, but we didn't lose to a single short execute. We gave them full short control every single round. You can go back and check if you want. One time they wanted to go short. They tried to run out on timing, and they died to our AWP, and then the whole round fell apart from them. So that's, again, a great example of, you know, short execute is basically like the next step on the ladder. Obviously, I'm talking right now basically strictly pugs. There are things that are far more complex to do than a short execute. The thing is, if you are just pugging, there is no way you will face something that's more complex than a short execute for the T's to do, basically. Like, sure, my team has strats where we need all 5 players to be perfectly, you know, matched when it comes to running patterns and smokes and all kinds of, you know, different nades. But for the majority of puck teams, because they aren't teams, they are, you know, playing solo queue or 3-stack or whatever, they won't be able to do something more complex. And that's why if you're sort of going through a checklist, if you have a duo queue with you or something like that, if you effectively make sure your team blocks rush B every round, and then blocks long take, and then, you know, next focus should be blocking mid to B. Then, hang on, I'm having some lags again. Probably it's Steam reconnecting. But yeah, if you then effectively block mid to B, the T's have to short execute or contact out short. And contacting out short against an AWP is just kind of a death sentence. And yeah, short execute is probably so complex that people won't be doing it in pugs. And then they just are out of options. Then they have to do something like just take random duels, or they have to force a mid to B even though it's being blocked well and stuff like that. And that's the beauty of this. Let's call it a tier list, or this Counter-Strike ladder, and understanding how that works. Yeah, okay, you guys with me so far?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, then I will just move into the next map. So for Inferno, it's basically the same thing. It will be basically the same thing on all maps. But yeah, number one again, rush B. If you do a good job of blocking rush B, then you've blocked the easiest thing for the opponents to do. Then I would say something like apps pop is probably number two easiest thing. It's literally walk forward in apps, and when you are there, just get someone to flash over apps. And then, like, ideally, you do like the small play smoke. I actually don't know the lineup of this smoke either, as you can pretty clearly tell. I'm pretty close with this lineup, but I don't know exactly. It might be double click jump throw. But yeah, so if you manage to block rush B and you manage to block apps pop, then you've already made the T's do something much more complex. Any other ideas of things that T's would be able to do in a pug?
Be too short.
Yeah, mid to short. Yeah, I agree with you. So what does that take? Well, it takes at least a smoke long, right? And probably a Molotov short. And maybe a bounce flash as well. And you can see already the complexity of this has gone up quite significantly. You could obviously also just contact mid. That's also something where it's the same as on Dust 2. Instead of doing short execute, you will always have the option of contacting short, right? But that's why a lot of CT teams set up with the AWP playing on long. That way, if the Ts decide to go mid-contact, you punish them with the AWP. And that's really a lot of CT sides. The reason why the AWP is playing in certain spaces is because you want to punish a contact. That's why, you know, on a map like Nuke, you have the AWP outside, because that's the area that you can contact and where the AWP will just absolutely destroy you. The same with mid. If I had to hold this with a rifle or even on an off angle, stuff like that, it's very risky. But playing here with AWP is almost a free kill if the Ts decide to go up mid without utility. So yeah, I would say definitely mid to short is on the list. Some of these I've thought about before, and I would say one thing I think is slightly easier is B-pop. Because almost everyone knows how to do some kind of CT smoke. Let me see, is this still working? Well, I mean, it's still a CT smoke. It didn't bounce. But yeah, there's also this lineup. Double click and W jump throw. This one lands and then bounces and lands up on the boost. And then, you know, all you need is basically just one entry flash. And you have a chance of winning the round. It's quite simple. The same as the apps pop. And then I will agree, mid to short. And then short to A side is like probably next on the list. But it is more complex because also there is some complexity in terms of, you know, if you do smoke and then Molotov and then flash, you're making it really obvious that you're coming mid. And you kind of block yourself from going. Instead, if you smoke like smoke long and contact short, it isn't as complex in terms of utility, but you need to understand when what is good. Like, it will be against a guy who's playing not aggressive short, for example. Yes. Okay. I want to mention a video that I recommend you guys to check out. I must be honest and said, like, I only watched 2 minutes of this video, and it was about 20 minutes. Probably some of you have watched it already, but Elige made a video where he goes through for each side, for each map, what is his number one tip for pugging. And one of the things he said was that on Inferno CT side, don't fight down mid too much, basically. You can, like he showed it pretty specifically, like you can use a flash like this as a check flash from it, which is good. But don't just be the guy who is fighting down short all the time to mid, because these duels aren't great. And also, if you die, it's a big problem for your team, basically. So what he was saying was, you should play crossfires. And you could, just play a crossfire from long, and then from under the thing here, under the roof. And you can actually even tuck in, kind of, and you will have almost the same angle. So when people come out mid, you let them out a bit, but then they get destroyed by this crossfire. And then afterwards, he mentioned that, if you're having an AWP and you're holding mid, even if you get flashed off the angle, or if you miss your shot and you have to fall back, he said, and that's really important, that's kind of what sparked the idea of making this session today, is that he said, you can always fall back to, this angle, or you can even fall back all the way to library, because Ts in pugs are rarely going to be able to do these two smokes and do like a proper long rep. Now, if you as AWP get pushed back into CT and the Ts do long rep, that is basically the biggest counter to you falling back that passive as an AWP. But it won't happen in pugs, because players are not enough people know these lineups and use them enough that they know they can land them in that specific round. And either you need someone to drop the smoke, or you need like 2 smokes, and typically to even use these smokes at all, you need to first take mid control and then do the smokes. And again, it just becomes far more complex. So the fact that he said it, he's obviously much better than me, and historically much better than me as well. But I completely agree with him. There are certain things in pugs you can get away with doing that won't get you in any trouble. Whereas if you're playing, a big tournament, this could get you in trouble. So kind of use and abuse it in pugs, but also know, like, I think that's part of why some players are good in Face-It and aren't that good in team games. It's because the way they play is great for uncoordinated players, but coordinated teams, it's harder to play against them, of course. So my point with this was just that if you block the mid to short, where they don't use util, right? So like this crossfire, what Elige said. Even if you get smoke long, whatever, I think he specifically mentioned doing a Molotov in mid won't do that much. I disagree. I think if you get smoke long and you Molotov here, you at least buy enough time that your teammate can fall back and you can play a different setup. But either way, I think forcing the Ts to take mid with utility is again another layer of complexity. And then if you're playing here with AWP or here with AWP and you're getting a lot of kills, you are forcing them, even further, like to number 5, which is, let's say, long rep smokes. And again, this is just something that doesn't exist in pugs. So you are essentially playing in a way where the best counter for the Ts, even if they know it, it's impossible for them to do it. And that's the beauty of this checklist or tier list or ladder or whatever I want to call it. So yeah, that's what I think is really, really interesting. And actually before the long rep smokes probably comes, like the actual number 5 would probably be something like B execute. Like where you do the smokes first, and then you do like full Molotovs, like we do Molotov triple, and I don't even know I think it's from here you can do some like, maybe you can double click jump throw lineup or something like that. Like imagine this, but it lands here and then it burns like both sides, and then you also need a dark Molotov, and you can see again, I am not a professional player anymore. I don't know these lineups because they just don't get used in pugs. And then yeah, then we would go to long wrap smokes as the next one, and so on. So understanding as a CT to block the easy stuff means the Ts have to play in a way that's much more difficult for them, and what that gives you is you're forcing them out of their comfort zone, and you are kind of forcing them to play in a certain way, and yeah, that's what will win you games on all maps, but these were specifically for Inferno. So I think we will skip Vertigo for now, and we will also skip Train, because Train hasn't been played professionally yet, and Vertigo is going out of the pool, so I think it doesn't really make sense to talk about. But let's slide into Ancient and Anubis and talk about the same things. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay. All good, then I'll just continue. Okay. So, on Ancient, I would argue that the easiest thing is, again, B-Rush. And that's also why you see all B players, all professional B players, in almost every single round will Molotov. In fact, they do it a little bit different. They do something like this. I'm not completely sure about the lineup, but they basically run to the side, because long has been, I guess, found to be probably the strongest area for the B player to play. Playing left side is super meta right now, and so doing the Molotov and crossing at the same time, not having to like go here and stop and then throw it and then go over, it actually makes a difference. So yeah, blocking B-Rush, number one thing. I've talked about this in a video series on my YouTube channel called Face It Cheat Code, and a lot of what I'm talking about today is basically the Face It Cheat Code. I'm talking about what is the number one thing you have to do, or the number 3 things you have to do to win Mirage or win Inferno and bugs. And what I talked about there partly is that I think too many B players Molotov and then kind of disregard their Molotov in a way where they think that it's impossible for the Ts to push through it. I've played matches on Ancient. It doesn't happen so much anymore, but it happened a lot in CSGO, where my B player would be doing Molotov, and then Ts would be, you know, running up and smoking the Molotov on the right side, just going through and be getting flashes up here, and then my B player would die, and you know, not much else would happen, essentially. That's why it's important for you to know, if you are a little more inexperienced, if you want to hard block something, a Molotov is typically not enough. But if you do a Molotov and you nade in the Molotov, this is super good for multiple reasons. If they want to, like if the first guy tries to run through the Molotov and kind of just beat it while the other guy is turning it off, well, the nade will make him tag in the Molotov and slow him down, so he will take even more damage in the Molo. On top of this, you know, he takes, yeah, as I said, a lot of damage. He gets slowed, so the first guy up is going to be delayed. And the second guy as well is also going to get nade damage and going to be slowed down. And a lot of, how can I say, a lot of what stops a rush is taking out the first or the second player. Did someone want to say something, or was that... Okay, I think not. Otherwise, you can always interrupt me, guys. But, so yeah, if you lose to a B-Rush, and you have a player on your team who's not blocking it effectively, whatever, make sure that they Molotov and then ask them to throw a nade in it. That will always stop a rush, basically, or at least soften up the opponents enough that you can win a round. Number 2 on the ladder, I would say, is rushing mid, basically. A lot of Ts go for this when they are out of options, right? They do insta window smoke from spawn. They have the best spawn, maybe with a Tech 9 or Mech 10 or whatever. Run out and basically just like flash in the back, go out, and they will typically take this running path trying to kill the donut player. And then they will be getting flashes from spawn. A lot of good players will be having 3 flashes here, so 1 drop from a teammate. I don't know the exact lineup, but you want to ideally get the flash to land here. So it's behind the wall, but all the CTs get blind, and your guy can never be blind. And then after doing this flash, what a lot of people will do is they will throw the second and third flash on the right side. The idea of this, and again, we want it to land basically up here. The idea of this is the donut player, if he is, running here, he gets blind, he will fall back, and now he gets blind by these extra flashes up here. So again, as CT, how do we block this? Well, smoking mid from spawn is essential on Ancient. There is an alternative if you don't know how to smoke, or if smoking it isn't enough. I'll get more into that later. But basically, Molotoving deep, and then also Molotoving close, like having 2 people who do the Molotovs, is a lot of the times good enough for blocking mid. Give me just one moment. I'll just close WhatsApp because I'm getting some notifications that you guys on the video can hear. Okay, so definitely a big suggestion if you are playing Ancient a lot. Make sure you learn the instant window smokes. Doesn't really matter which position on the map you're playing. Being able to offer them for your teammates is so good. I know one of the lineups is like that spawn 5. Wow, it might land. Okay, it almost landed, but at least typically what people do is they get smoke from spawn, they get molo, they nade in it, they run close, they dodge flash, and they fight. And then they try to clear in front of the mid smoke, which allows you also to take heaven control and stuff like that. Some players will on purpose try to go in front and see if they can stand behind the Molotov or stand here, or they will go out slightly delayed with flashes through the smoke. That's why sometimes it can be good to change it up by doing the double Molotovs, because then they can't really use this timing, and they, I guess, can still stand here, but it's less of a good position because you can't really fall back after getting a kill. So yeah, blocking mid is sort of second on the list. And obviously, as we already talked about, these should be kind of done. At least the number 1 priorities should be done basically every single round. Like block the B rush every single round, block the mid rush every single round. And then I would say on Ancient, the next thing that top players are doing a lot is they will be coming here and doing the Brawler Molo. So you put your shoulder up on the door, you aim here, and then you run forward. And if you get a good feel for it, you can do it very much on the go. This one burns in here. I have a CT incendiary instead of a Molotov, but it will burn quite a bit. And it forces the cave player here to make a decision, basically. So a lot of top players, or just players in general, I guess, will be running fast cave and trying to take this space. And that's why, probably third on the list is block cave rush. Or like, I will write it as cave rush because this is what the T's are likely to do. I don't know the exact lineups, but I think people go and do like... Well, actually, I think... Is it like that? Yeah, so I think as the cave player comes out of spawn, they typically aim like this and run. I'm not quite sure. I've done it before like this with slow walk and jump throw, I think. But that was in CSGO. Anyway, the lineups of it is not so important. But basically they actually, I think it's double click jump throw. That's what I'm doing wrong. There we go. Okay. So aiming around here and then double click jump throw should be good. But you need to get a feel for it. Anyway, they do the Molotov, and then they also do a nade at the same time, so that when the Molotov lands, basically the T's, they have two choices. They can either smoke it off and go through it, or they can respect it. And if they smoke it off and go through it, well, typically then the nade comes and lands right on their head, and then they are already minus 50, and they are slowed down, which gives the cave player enough time to actually get forward and be the first player here. If you play against T's who do the Brawler Molotov a lot, one counter as well can be to do beat or smoke from spawn. There are some lineups, I don't know them exactly, but it looks somewhat like this. They have to bounce on this wall, and then it lands so fast that people can't line up the Brawler and Molotov through it. What some crazy geniuses of Counter-Strike do, shout out Holmes, is they have even a lineup for some of the spawns for the Brawler and Molotov. So they line up something in spawn, that way they can run, and then as they are getting to the door, imagine that you just immediately do it. And even if the CTs did a door smoke, yeah, this will still land. And that's pretty insane. But yeah, door smoke can be another good way of blocking the cave rush. Then, next on the list, I've seen this a million times, you know, T's get blocked on the B rush, they get blocked on the rush mid, they get blocked on the cave rush, and then they go for the next thing, which is rush A. In terms of complexity, this isn't, like, honestly, rush B is probably number 1, and rush A is technically number 2. The only thing is, the reason I would say rush A is 4th on my checklist is because rushing A isn't really that strong on Ancient. If you are A player and you hear rush A and you're jiggling with Molotov, you can drop it and you could probably defend the A side. But what a lot of CT teams do is they don't even really almost play with an A player, because if you go through the checklist, if you block the rush mid by coming out, doing Molo, doing nade, you go out, you clear it, you see, okay, mid clear, you can actually make it to donut and run to A before the T's are coming out A. And that's why, even though A rush is definitely not complicated, it is, I would say, less important to block, because it isn't that dangerous. It's not a guaranteed round for the T's, even if they rush out into an open A-bomb site. And also, there is some complexity to it, because you need to have, like, lineups like so. I'm not even sure if this one will land. It may or it may not. I think, actually, this might land. Okay, it did actually land. But yeah, smoking donut in run is quite tricky. And having someone... like the way people smoke donut and run, I try to do it on feeling. I haven't done it for a long time, but you can basically do it like this if you are a little bit cool. I failed it a little bit, but the idea is kind of there. If you don't do the running jump throw for donut smoke, if you, for example, want to go here and do the set donut smoke and everything, that one is just too late for a rush. And that is why I guess there is some kind of complexity to the A rush. If you don't get the donut smoke down in time, yeah, you might not make it. Also, let me show you a cool smoke. If you're ever in a position where you know that someone is donut, but you don't really want to peek him, you can actually go in this corner. And this one is like horizontal, this one is vertical. Where they meet, if you aim there and you do normal jump throw, I think not a lot of people know this, but it bounces off this thing and it actually goes in and lands inside donut. So that's a cool little lineup for you guys if you wanna smoke donut without exposing yourself to donut. Okay, anything else worth mentioning on Ancient? I guess, you know, the T's, like, on all the maps there will be other options, right? But the T's could also take, delayed mid control into a split, right? If they feel like they go through the checklist, basically, it disappeared, but they can't rush B, they can't rush mid, they can't rush cave, they can't rush A, they probably will go with something like delayed mid control into splitting either A or B. But that is, again, much more complex. You need to have a lineup for the window smoke from here. Is it like this? Yes. And then you will also need to do, like a jungle Molotov. I even fucked it up here a little bit. But you need this Molotov. And then, as you're taking mid control, you're making things really obvious. And now you need to use this to split either A or B. And again, so many more decisions made, so many more things that can go wrong. Because you do it later in a round instead of doing something fast, that again increases the complexity of doing it and stuff like that. And that's again why that is difficult. The same with, I guess B execute isn't like extremely complex, but on Ancient it is quite easy to block a B execute if you have nades. Like, if you are the B player, for example, and you're jumping here and they start doing B execute, you just smoke here. And now you wait, and then you can go through and you can defend it really well. Even like a proper B execute. And so, even though this isn't that complex, it kind of becomes complex in that you need to do it when the CTs have less utility, basically. So, yeah, again, added complexity. And that's, I think Ancient, again, there are more things you could do. You could potentially, take delayed mid control, and you could split with this smoke to go into CT and split A, or you could do all these crazy things. But, again, this is unlikely to be played, it's unlikely to be done against you in a PUG, because people are just not that coordinated. And that's why, again, we have the ladder. And if we sort of, I guess a ladder is a pretty good analogy for the reason that if you kick out the bottom steps of a ladder, it gets increasingly more difficult to climb it. Yes, and that leads us to, I believe, the last map, since I said we're not gonna do Vertigo. We didn't do Nuke either, but I think, yeah, Nuke, it's not really a map that's played much in PUGs. I think it will be fine just by doing Anubis, and that will also fit the time. So, any Anubis enjoyers here on the Discord?
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Ugh.
Oh, you don't like the map? Well, I personally really like the map. But I'm curious, what do you guys think? What is your go-to, or what is the easiest thing to do?
Rush B.
Yeah, probably Rush B again, right? It's actually the same on all maps, basically. Except on Nuke, because there isn't really a B side you can just rush. But I guess rushing ramp is a little bit the same. And that's... What, sorry?
Yeah, it's a path to be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
For Anubis, I guess you could say mid is equally as easy as rushing B.
Yeah, I think that's kind of true. I do think, like, mid is a place, though, where it's like more things can go wrong. Like, you can kind of be rushing mid, and then they could have a flash setup, or the CT can, be hiding behind this, or can be playing here or something, where he will have like a pretty good duel. Whereas on B, if you just straight up rush B, there isn't that many places the CTs can be, right? Like, one has to basically be con, and one has to be somewhere holding B main. So it's all the fights are happening in your, like, in this 45-degree window, basically. Whereas in mid, there is at least a little bit more complexity in terms of you have to, like, run through and clear more angles, and you can get peaked on timing or people holding off angles. But I agree, though. Mid rush is gonna be my second. I mean, I guess technically, if we just want to do a third one as well, rush A is like also quite simple, right? I think most people as well are able to just run rugs, and as you're doing it, just do like this Molotov. And now you cut off the rotations that haven't come through, and the last guy can run and can do like smoke, whatever. Then you've basically done everything you need to do to A-rush. So on Anubis there are many things that are actually quite easy. And that's also what when I play Anubis as CT, this is what I'm seeing as well. A lot of people like to B-rush, a lot of people like to B-pop, a lot of people like to, contact B or like take aim fights B. And it's kind of the same as on other maps, contacting B, like, or fighting this with AK versus M4 can feel pretty comfortable. And the counter to that is then the AWP will sometimes start B, and if the guy is contacting B, you just kill him. And now, yeah, it's a free kill as CT, and also for the Ts, they need to know that there could be an AWP in a later round. But yeah, I would say B-pop is not even complex either. Like, it literally takes, one flash, and then, like, the first guy who runs in just does temple molo, for example. Or maybe not the first guy, but like the first two guys run in, and the third guy just does molo temple, and now you've locked out the closest rotation, and you can focus on the people who are inside the site. That's a super strong round as well. Which is why, again, we will always talk about what is the easiest thing, and then how to block it. So the way a lot of pro CT players will do it is they will use a Molotov early in B main, or even be jumping with Molo. I like to do this myself, so that if they rush B, you can Molo in time. If you hear any smokes or flashes come over, or even if you just see someone, you can always Molo and then try to fight, basically. The same with mid rush. You will see basically every mid player in the world. How was this again? I haven't played mid for a while. You can do like mid smoke at the start, or you can do mid Molotov at the start, blocking the mid rush. And the same, you will see almost all A players either do like this Molotov, or do this Molotov, or be jiggling like this with Molotov in hand, so that if they rush A, you just drop it, you fall back. Countering the fast things on especially Anubis is so important. And why is it such a heavy T map? It's because almost everything you do as T is simple. There really isn't a lot of things that are complex. Like, as I mentioned, one temple Molotov is enough to lock off the rotation completely. The same on A. One camera Molotov is enough to lock off all the rotation on A, at least the first rotation, basically. You can definitely contact with AKs towards con and just take like straight up aim fights. You can do it with or without utility. You don't need a whole lot of coordination. The same with B-pop or contact B. You don't need a whole lot of teamwork or communication or anything like that. Just people searching in, and when you get the kill, you Molotov tempo, and then you search the other guy. And now, that's it. Even if you want to go for a split on Anubis, this was, one of the things that we used to make things more complex on, like, this was one of the things we did, or like we talked about on Mirage and Inferno especially, and Ancient as well. A lot of the times, blocking early on the sides of the map, and then forcing the Ts to play through mid, is way more complex. But on a map like Anubis, like, taking mid control isn't that difficult, and all it takes is one smoke, and you basically, on Anubis, only ever split one way, which is towards A, on a normal round. So this is actually also quite straightforward. And so one of the best ways you can sort of increase the complexity of the T side on Anubis is, first, don't give any stupid entries, and second, block. I guess actually the number one thing is block early and heavy on the places that people like to rush, and then the second is don't give anything away for free. I'll show you what I mean with that last part, because I think that's a really important thing for Anubis, is that we can block B, We can block con. I know if you're not playing against AWP, a lot of players like to do like info jumps like this, or like do like this, so that you basically won't die, but you get info. Some people like to hold this off angle as well. Some people will molo early, whatever. The same on A. I mentioned already, some people will block early, some people will like to jiggle and then block on contact. Same with mid. Some people like to block early. I think everyone in mid basically blocks early. But to increase the complexity of the T side, one thing that is actually, in my opinion, super key that I see majority of players do wrong that aren't professionals, is that the mid player, it's actually the same as Elish said about Inferno. I wonder if he said the same thing on Anubis. But the mid player should not feel forced to fight for this space. It's okay to give up this space. And it sounds kind of crazy because I just said how easy it is to kind of just split A. But, you know, it is possible to jiggle with a Molotov here, for example, and get the contact here and then drop the Molotov and use this to buy time. That's an option. You can also, you know, sit here, or you can sit here, or you can sit here, where these angles are not that nice for the T's to fight, because they are hard angles to trade. Like this one, if you kill the first guy, or if he overswings your angle, maybe the second guy comes and you kill him, or if you're sitting here, you kill the first guy, and now the second guy has to just dry swing. Because flashing these angles is not that easy. A lot of the times it will land behind this wall, or it will land somehow otherwise awkwardly. You can also, as long as you have an A main player who is jiggling here close with you till, you can always play like these angles for camera, or this angle, or play, you know, off angle, stuff like that. You can also play too close around A main, so that this player, when like jiggling with smoke, when he gets contact, you smoke, and now you ignore A main and you double fight towards camera, and when you've killed camera together, now you focus A main together. So to add complexity to the T side, you need to not be giving entry in mid. You need to be blocking them from taking mid early, because you don't want them to full on rush mid or have too much time to lock your rotations or whatever. You don't want mid to be free, but at the same time, you don't want to die in mid. And that's kind of the same on a spot like con. Like, you don't want them to be able to take con for free, but dying in con is a really big problem, because what a lot of T's will do is, if they kill the rifle con, they will just run forward and they will have people B lobby, and now they split B fast. Again, very simple, before the rotation comes in, and it's almost always a guaranteed round on Anubis, which is already a T-sided map. So yeah, just not giving entry on con and mid, two very key positions, will make the T's slow down their play, which can be hard to play against the CT, but it again adds complexity for the T's. And that allows you to push for area as CT. Like, if you know you're always, how can I say, if you always play against people who rush, it's a coin flip where they go. You can't really stack. But if you're able to block them for the first minute of the round, that allows you, it's again the sort of poker analogy, that allows you to play against people who are no longer all in. And with that, you know, if you block them for the first minute and you feel like they are gathering up to go B, you can do a double info push on A, right? Or if you think they're gathering up to do an A execute, you can do a double info push on B, or you can even have just one take a risk, stuff like this. And so then you remove, or you don't remove it, but you minimize the element of randomness. And by minimizing the element of randomness, it means if you are actually the better player, you will win more often than not. Anubis is a tough map to play CT on overall, but there is still ways to increase the complexity. Yeah, I'll give you one last example, and then I think we'll transition into questions. but even something like an A execute, which does have quite a bit of util. Like do smoke camera, molo here, smoke heaven, and molo broken. Even though that is more complex than a lot of things that, you know, other people, or like we've talked about on the other maps. What's unique about this is that this does, like people do this in pugs. You have to be able to play against this. But here again, if you are the A player, or if you can sort of coach your A player to block the most easy thing, what I mentioned, if you jiggle here, and now A execute comes in, if you block this space, now again, even though the A execute might not be that complex to do, you are forcing the T's into a position where they have to stop and think, do we want to blitz the smoke? Do we want to jump through it? Do we want to underhand flash through it? Do we want to, yeah, basically you just make them make a choice. Whereas if you wouldn't block them, there wouldn't be a choice. They would just do A execute, they would just run like brain dead monkeys. And the final thing I have to say about this, obviously this was with a big focus on how you can use this to win more pugs. But this same thing definitely works in CS, Team CS, Pro CS. I would argue Tier 1 CS. You will see elements of this rule maybe unknowingly being followed in every pro match you're watching. Everyone will be blocking the easy things. And then eventually, you know, maybe those things kind of go out of meta and they don't get blocked as much and stuff like that because other things become the norm. But always blocking what is the most likely or the easiest option for the T means they have to play outside their comfort zone, and they have to do things that are more complex. And for them to do something that is more complex, they either have to be, you know, a really, really good team, or they will be making mistakes. And that's also why sometimes when you see a Tier 2 team play against a Tier 4 team, whatever, they will absolutely destroy them. And then the Tier 2 team will meet the Tier 1 team shortly after, and the Tier 1 team will destroy the Tier 2 team. That is not because, you know, they got bad overnight. It's likely because the Tier 1 team is better at blocking the things that the Tier 2 team likes to do. And then forces them out of their comfort zone. So yeah, that's why I think this is a really important session. And why I wanted to bring this to you today. So yeah, guys, I hope you feel like you learned something. And yeah, I hope it sparks some thoughts in your mind, because I think for a lot of you, this is probably something you've never thought about. But I hope you will agree with me. It makes a ton of sense. And also that you now can hopefully implement this in your own game. And yeah, I want to say with 99% certainty, if you implement this and you think about this when you're playing pugs, about blocking the easiest stuff first, or sort of having that priority of doing that, forcing them to play more complex Counter-Strike, you will see results. And I'd love for you guys to get back to me and tell me if that's also the feeling you are having. Yeah, any questions? No. Okay. None at all? All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm going to assume that if there's no questions, either I'm so boring that everyone has fallen asleep, or it means that I did such a good job at explaining that you guys understand it completely. I hope it's the second, of course.
I think we're all ready to go pro now.
Yeah. Okay. What did you say, Henning? Sorry?
I said we're salty because he didn't go over nuke.
Ah, I get it. I get it. You know what? I'll do that in the next session if you would really like me to. I just find that in general people don't care that much about nuke because it doesn't get played much in pugs. It's such a fun map for Team CS though. It's a great, great map. All right. Well, then, guys, if you guys don't have any questions, then it's the same case as always. From my side, I have to wake up very early tomorrow and drive my girlfriend to work. So I will head out then. But thank you so much for coming and watching the session. And I hope you feel like you learned something. Otherwise, let me know and I will do my best to do it better next time.